You are now watching Bleav. Do you believe?
And welcome into a very special edition of the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson, joined by Sports Illustrated Panthers beat writer Schuyler Callihan, and our brand new co-host. He may seem familiar to some Panther fans, the number 13 overall pick in the 2008 NFL Draft, 11-year NFL veteran, 10 of those with the Carolina Panthers, the all-time Panthers rushing leader at 7,318 yards, Mr. Jonathan Stewart, our new co-host for the 2022 season. What's going on, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you for that wonderful intro. It's an honor to be with you guys, man. We're gonna have some fun this year, and talking football, something that I usually don't do. But I'm so excited to step into this space. It's time. I got a lot to say. So
well, this is the platform for it. Shout out to Bleav for making it happen. As everybody knows, we're all over the place. Bleav's been making moves over the past year. You can hear this on the SiriusXM app. All 32 NFL teams now have an official Bleav podcast attached to them. You can also find it, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, on all major podcast platforms. Before we get into everything, and we got a lot to get to today, a lot of it centered around the quarterback room for the Carolina Panthers. A quick word from our sponsors over at Bet Online. Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. Bet Online continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head over to Bet Online today. Use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BLEAV50, that's BLEAV 50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. Let's just hop right into it. Today, of course, the first thing we need to get into is this Matt Corral injury. Schuyler, I thought of you actually when I first heard this, because I was actually calling a high school football game Friday night and I had to watch the replay. But when I heard he got injured, my immediate thought went to PJ Walker, because I've had this running thing about PJ Walker the past 3 weeks. Like, I can't figure out why PJ Walker's still here, other than him having a relationship with head coach Matt Rule. There's 4 quarterbacks here. I couldn't figure it out. And karma, man, something. I don't know, but this Liz Frank injury with Matt Corral, it looks like the minimum he could be out is 6 months. If he has surgery, it could be a year. And it looks like PJ's going to get another life here. I mean, do you think the Panthers are going to keep 3?
I don't. I still think they'll keep 2. I mean, there's an outside chance maybe that they keep PJ, but I just don't see them wanting to waste a roster spot. No disrespect to PJ, but you don't want to waste a roster spot at quarterback, because you only have one guy there, right? You only have one guy taking the snaps there, where they probably could use that extra spot on the D line, maybe even the offensive line. They've got a lot of tight ends that they're trying to sort through. Even cornerbacks, I think, is another one, which I've told you many times. They may have 6 cornerbacks, that maybe even 7 that they really like, but how many are they actually going to keep? So I think it'll still be Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. And what I will say is there's no way that the Panthers are going to trade Sam Darnold. Like, there's just no way, unless they get completely overwhelmed, either financially with an offer or compensation-wise. I mean, even then, I still don't know, because like Matt Rule said, only 12 teams last year played their starter the entire season. If Baker Mayfield goes down and all you have left is PJ Walker, you're in a world of hurt. So I think you kind of like this situation where you have 2 guys who are capable starters, and I don't think they would be willing to move off of Sam just right now.
What are your thoughts on this, Jay Stu? Because Matt Corral was showing a little promise there. He got a lot of run in that Patriots game, but then, of course, the one thing you can't control in preseason is something like an injury happening, and we saw this.
I think at the end of the day, Schuyler's right. You got to have 2 capable quarterbacks, as you've seen in the past 3-4 years. That's been a position where we've been struggling. You got to have guys in there that can lead this team, and unfortunately, with Matt Corral going down, you definitely need to have 2 of the bright individuals in the room. So Sam Darnold, he ain't going nowhere unless like you said, you get a pretty penny for it. And that's value, right? At the end of the day, if that is kind of the game plan down the road during the season or whatever happens with injuries and roster moves and the depth chart, at the end of the day, starting the season off, you got to make sure that offensive line depth is potent. So there might be some moves made even at that, position and that depth as other teams are making moves just to make sure that, that position is stacked. And so you definitely don't want to have three quarterbacks to where you don't get to have that, that opportunity when it presents itself.
I would imagine that based off of that they still might go with what I thought was the original plan with PJ in the first place, which is to try to stow him away on practice squad and hope that nobody picks him up. So that's probably still what they're hoping to do with him. I mean, he's got, they're learning a new offense, but he's been here for, 2 years, Schuyler?
Yeah. And I think a guy like PJ, having him sticking around for his practice squad, that's a guy that, everyone knows, like that's a locker room individual. You know what I'm saying? Someone that knows the ropes, knows the guys, know how the culture is supposed to be. Because at the end of the day, he's still playing the quarterback position. He's just not, suiting up. And I think that's valuable. As you can see this year, there's definitely a whole different type of vibe with the team, which says that they're starting to find their swag. They're starting to find their culture. And that culture is, we trying to win some games. I'm tired of losing.
Let's actually stop right there for a second, because we've talked about that a little bit in terms of saying that this year's team kind of had a different vibe to it as opposed to the last 2 years. And I know one of those years was COVID, and then last year, they're still kind of learning their players, through all of this. And then Coach Rule finally clears out a lot of that coaching staff that came up through college and brought some pro coaches in there. How important is it as a former player? I'm sure you had teams where you noticed the chemistry and the vibe was just different that season than other seasons. Like, I know you can't really put a finger on it, but how important is that to especially a young team like this Panther team? I think they're like the third youngest team in the whole league. Like, how important is it to build that at this time of the year?
I mean, it's important, man, because you got to figure out why you're playing. A lot of guys play for different reasons. I can tell you from my experience, the years that we had the best culture was when each person knew everyone on a personal level of some sort. And I think, you go 3 years back, you have the pandemic. You have guys that don't know each other, but can't see each other, can't hang out with each other, can barely talk to each other. Everybody on their phones anyway. So socially, people ain't really vibing. I don't know you like that. I just see you come to work every day. You know what I'm saying? And you can't really bond or find a mesh or find a reason to go and really lay down your body for, your locker mate or your teammate unless you really getting to know each other. And I think what's happened over time, from this off season, I've seen, guys going out to eat together, hanging out with each other, and just, finding that vibe that's so important. Because at the end of the day, when if you know your locker mate and you know their family, you know their kids, you know what grade they're in, you know that the night before they were sick and they had COVID, or you know what I'm saying? Like, you really start to say to yourself, man, I'm really about to go to practice today so I don't mess this up for my teammate, because they got to eat too and they got a family to support too. So that's the culture, that really resonates with me looking back in my playing days, as far as the teams that, that I've been on that really, rise to the occasion and gave ourselves a shot.
2015 immediately comes to mind, that team. I mean, because it just emanated off that roster on the sidelines, just like watching you on the sidelines interact with each other.
And to be honest, man, 2014, I'll even say.
The 7-8-1 team. Yeah.
That weird year that we made the playoff. But like, I just remember we played the Minnesota Vikings and it was cold as bejesus out there. But like everyone there knew, like, man, we about to lose this game. But next week, it was like a click. Like everybody was on the same page. It's like, it's cold out here. We ain't got no business being out here. We're gonna make sure we do what we gotta do. We're gonna give ourselves an opportunity to win. Special teams that game really didn't help us out, man. We got a bunch of block kicks. I'm gonna blame it on
right.
that.
Yeah, I remember that
game. but we legit walked on that sideline looking at each other, grown men, cold, trying to huddle up, stay warm, and said, hey, next week we about to take this on a whole nother level. And from that moment, we went on and started winning games, got ourselves into the playoffs, lost to the Seahawks, came back the next year.
It set up the next year, right? I mean, it felt like it carried because it was like y'all won the last 4 games of that year, I Bleav. Because Rivera was like notorious for that. Like he would finish on a strong note. Like you guys would win like the last 5 or 6 games of the year, regardless of how y'all started. And you got in, won the division at 7-8-1, which was crazy in itself. And if I'm not mistaken, then y'all played Arizona in that wild card game, the first one. And I think, I'm not sure, I need to check it, but I think that the defense still holds the record for least amount of yards allowed in a playoff game in that game. Like Luke and T were just all over the place. Like, so I remember that run, and I remember it did set up 2015, and it was like that everyone kind of just, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but you can see it. You can see it when it's going on. Later on this, actually earlier this week, Baker Mayfield was named the starter for week 1, September 11th, against his former team, the Cleveland Browns. They'll be coming to Bank of America Stadium with a 1 p.m. kickoff. Not really surprising. I think we all knew when they traded to bring Baker in here and the scrambling they were doing to try to find any other quarterback to play this year. I mean, they traded up for Matt Corral to begin with in the draft, picked him in the 3rd round. My understanding is they were on the phone with Cleveland while all that was going on, trying to still work a trade for Baker, for them to circle back around to bring him in anyway. I do like the fact that Matt Rule didn't just immediately name him the starter, like when he came in, that he kind of, made him work for it. And that's the same thing they're doing with Ike Ekwonu, where they could have just labeled him the starting left tackle from day one, but they didn't. They made him work, and Brady Christensen made him work for that position, and to the point now where they've named him starting left tackle, and you feel like they've earned it. What's the ceiling? I'm asking this to both of you. What's the ceiling for this year's Panther team? Because I've watched First Take. I've watched, all these talking head shows. When they get to the NFC South, they don't mention the Panthers at all. It's all Bucks or Saints. And am I tripping? Because Tom Brady's 45. I get it. He's Tom Brady. I totally get it. But half his offensive line is out. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he took that little 10-day vacation to really reevaluate if he wanted to do this in front of a Swiss cheese offensive line at age 45. Like, that's serious, like, life decisions that he probably had to go through. And he's like, well, I already told him I'm coming back. So he came on back. The Saints, I don't understand. Like, everyone's like, oh, their defense, and they got all these pieces and blah, blah, blah. Sean Payton is gone. Like, to me, I'm like, baby. Yeah, I mean, but he was getting whispered in his ear by Sean Payton. And, like, Sean Payton is no longer there. Dennis Allen is, like, 8-25 or something as a head coach. I'm just kind of trying to figure out, why are they ignoring the Panthers?
Let me tell you this. DJ, let them not talk about us.
It's hard, man. It's hard.
That's where we need.
I wear it on my sleeve. I'm just like,
we need to be under the radar anyways. Because you want to know something?
What? What's up?
If the Panthers end up being good, they ain't gonna talk about us anyway. They don't want to talk about us.
Facts.
They don't want to. That's just the nature of the Carolina Panthers.
I still, to this day, I should have made a T-shirt out of it. I still remember them calling us the worst 14-0 team of all time. And I'm like, how does that work? You know what I mean? Like, how does that even work? Like, what? So, like, they don't want to believe.
You can't make it make sense.
I've said it. Good, Justin.
No, man, I think the ceiling is high. I didn't already went out there and gave my hot take on Twitter. I said, We got a 10-win season going on.
Thank you. I picked 11-6, and people thought I was nuts. I'm like,
Yeah.
the schedule sets up for it.
I think we're gonna start off. I think for the first 4 games of the year, you know, that can go either way. But if we get the right way, you know, if Baker can go in there and start getting the chemistry going with his receivers, you know, and I think, you know, the new offensive coordinator utilizing them tight ends, we getting back to the nitty gritty, which is control the middle of the field. You can control the middle of the field, man. You can find yourselves really taxing the defenses that you're facing. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Scott, yeah, I think definitely 10 wins is in the cards. I mean, I'm still on the side of I want to see it first. Like I want to see them get through those first 4 games. Like Jay Stu said, like if you get to 3-1, that's going to be huge. You can't. I don't think you can go 2-2 in those first 4 because of the stretch of games after that. That's a brutal stretch. I mean, you've got Arizona, San Francisco, LA, Tampa Bay. Like that's murderer's row, and you've got to kind of find your way through that. So it's all about how they start. They started off 3-0 last year with Sam Darnold at quarterback. With this defense getting another year older and a much improved offensive line and better quarterback play, I don't see why they can't get off to even a hotter start. You know, I talked to Rashard Higgins a couple of weeks ago at training camp, and he's like, everything that I see in those close games that they lost, it's just little small things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all things that this team can fix to where they can start 7-0. That's his words. He thinks this team could start 7-0. But you know, I don't know if it's quite a playoff team yet, but I think with Baker, they're definitely in the driver's seat to at least have a chance. Yeah. Without it, I don't know. Like I think it's another 6-win season, but I think with Baker, you got a chance.
Hopefully, for the sake of this podcast, it's not another 6-win season.
Let's not ever say that again, Scott.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that. We're not doing that. Positivity over here. So I'm looking at the schedule. Week 1, hosting Cleveland. Week 2 at the Giants. Week 3 hosting the Saints. Week 4 hosting the Cardinals. Week 5 hosting the 49ers. And then they go to Los Angeles week 6. Honestly, I would be very happy if they got to week 6, considering the amount of home games they've got in this first batch. I mean, 4 of the first 5 first games are at home. And they're getting the Cardinals and the 49ers at home too. I don't know why.
And DeAndre Hopkins is not playing.
Right. DeAndre Hopkins isn't playing. I'm on record with I don't really trust Kyler Murray. I'm not really sure why they paid him so early. When he hadn't really done anything yet. I don't even think he's won a playoff game yet, and he secured a very large bag
in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, so I mean, they're coming here, and we beat them last year with Kyler behind center. Now, granted, he didn't have Hopkins that day either. No, actually, Kyler didn't play in that Arizona game. Yeah, so they can start. The start's going to be the key, and it all really comes down to Baker. I've been on record on this podcast too, where I've said that there's elements of Baker that remind me a little bit of Jake Delhomme in terms of how he plays. Now, Stu, you can attest to this because you played with Jake Delhomme. Do you see any similarities between him and Baker in terms of like personality or the way they play? Like the example I always give is that if you saw Baker Mayfield or Jake Delhomme on the practice field, there's nothing about them physically that makes you go, wow, like, look at that. Like with Cam, like you could see him from across the field, like, oh, who's that? And like you get up on him like, oh, okay. With them, you look at him and it's like, I don't get it. But something when game time starts, they just turn to different people. It's like some kind of, I don't want to call it like grit or something. I don't know what it is, but it's something about them both that I've noticed. What are your thoughts?
You know, playing with Jake, man, Jake was always just a natural motivator, right? Like his persona was authentic. You believed everything that was coming out of his mouth. And he would just challenge you. You know what I'm saying? And I think, you know, what Baker gives this offense and this huddle is guys to loosen up a little bit, but to also take pride in your stuff. Take pride in your work. Like, you coming out here to work, we ain't just going to be out here having a bad time. Like, trying to make this thing fun. Like, because you know what I'm saying? Like, we get it. Like, it's hard work out here, especially when you losing. Like, right now, we're not like no regular season games have been played. But last year you were a losing team. And so we need to change the culture around here, which I feel like Baker has been doing, which is, hey, let's joke on the defense. Let's challenge let's get chippy. Let's be ourselves. Let's get outside of this box. A guy that a lot of people might not compare that persona to, I compare that to Cam Newton, right? Cam made football fun. Cam came in after a terrible year of football for me and made it fun. You feel me? So he made it fun. He got chippy. He also he played with a chip on his shoulder. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what Baker's doing. Like, he's coming in. He came into the league with a chip on his shoulder. He was playing in college with a chip on his shoulder. You're darn right that he got a chip on his shoulder now.
Oh,
you feel
man.
me? So that mixture right there, that's a winning mixture. I like that.
I mean, to me, I also think this team needed that at quarterback. I mean, not every quarterback is going to be the same in terms of their swagger, their personality, and not every team needs to have a quarterback that's outspoken like Baker, Cam, and J-Car. But for a young team, I think that has been struggling over the last 3 years, you need a voice to lead that offense, and you need a voice in that locker room or in the film room to actually get something going. You have to be able to play for them.
Yeah,
like Sam is a great guy. I mean, he really, really is. For all the crap that he gets, he has handled this whole situation with total professionalism, and he is just a pro's pro, as Matt Rule would like to say. But at the end of the day, he hasn't got the job done. And I think part of that, I mean, I don't want to get into like whether his leadership is a problem or not, but to not have a voice, I think me and him have talked about this many times. I think there's a self-confidence issue with Sam. You don't have a self-confidence issue with Baker Mayfield. He'll let you know. So,
and to what you were saying though, like with a young team, it's all about confidence.
Exactly.
When we say chemistry, all we're saying is we saying confidence. You're saying, I believe in that guy. I believe that guy's going to make the block. I believe he's going to make that throw, and I'm going to catch it, and I'm going to ball out this game because my quarterback is going to give me the ball when I expect it. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times that confidence comes in different ways. It comes in action, or it comes verbal. If we talking and we making action, we saying what we doing what we saying we're gonna do. I like that, and this is what this team needs. That, like Baker Mayfield, I like his energy. I'll say Baker Mayfield has an X factor about him, right?
That's the word, X factor. Yeah.
And so when it comes to the skill component, we just need you to dial in. That's all.
And he's got the weapons. I mean. Hopefully a healthy CMC all year long. That's going to change a lot in terms of perception for the quarterback role. And then you got 2 former 1,000-yard receivers. DJ Moore's had 1,100 yards the past 3 years. Considering who's been throwing to him, that's an amazing feat in itself. So, I mean, he's got weapons to play with this revamped offensive line. I will say this, too, to echo what both of you guys said, and from what we said at the beginning of the show, where the national media don't really give us the time of day, even when we're winning every game. It feels like the years where we made a run out of nowhere, 2003, 2008, we made a pretty deep run. 2005, we made a pretty deep run. 2015, when we got back to the Super Bowl, we weren't picked in the beginning of those years. We weren't picked by anybody. I don't even know if we were picked to win the division by anybody in any of those years. We kind of would just stack wins. And eventually the media had to take notice of what we were doing reluctantly. But then what happened would be, like in 2015 especially, once they came on, they all came on. Like at the same time, they all jumped on. And then
last year.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of like that's what happened last year. Beginning of last year, we start 3-0. I'm on here comparing Sam Darnold to Troy Aikman, which is still living down. Troy had went to practice and was like, I see some elements of my game in the young Sam Darnold. He's doing his thing. Now, of course,
you were just quoting Troy.
Yeah, I'm just quoting Troy, right? And then as soon as that happens, McCaffrey gets hurt. J.C. Horn get like the Texans trip. Like when that happened, everything just fell apart going forward for the Panthers last year. Now, I will say that all those teams that made those runs, they were all kind of younger teams. They all had that dude that everybody kind of followed, you know, and usually it's the quarterback. It's even better when you got somebody on defense too that's doing it. But the Panthers the past 2 years haven't had that. And it was actually the one thing that I would always comment on that bothered me about Sam Darnold. He just didn't have that personality to be that kind of quarterback. And when you have a coach like Rule, who's not like a rah-rah type of coach where he's like the personality of the team, you kind of need somebody else to be that guy. So when they brought Baker in, we were like, oh, wow, this might be a really good match because they kind of needed that fire that they haven't really had since Cam left. And we saw a glimpse of it last year when they brought Cam back. I mean,
the whole city went crazy.
Yeah, the highlight of the year was
everybody was going to work with all giddy and stuff. Like,
now it's sad. We were like 4 and something at the time, but that was the highlight of the year. I mean, him running out that smoke.
Him being there made my job even more fun. And I mean, it's already a fun job as it is, but just his energy, even when he walks into the press conference room, it just like everyone's just kind of like relaxed. You know what I mean? Like it's just so much different. And I think Baker's a little bit different in that way. He's not really the same with the media in that sense, but I mean, you've got guys on that team like Brian Burns is just like that. Shaq Thompson, great guys to talk to. And I think those guys getting older is only going to make this team better. But I think what Scott Fitterer did this offseason was he made winning moves, like getting Baker Mayfield, getting Austin Corbett, getting Xavier Woods. Like those moves really weren't made the last 2 off seasons. That tells me right now this team's ready to turn the corner.
This is going to be a shorter than normal podcast for Bleav in Panthers. Y'all know that usually we go about 40, 50 minutes hard, but we're trying to keep them tight. So I want to get real quick before everybody's got to go. Preview, they're taking on the Bills preseason week 3. Real quick, we'll go around the table. What's one of the main things you want to see out of this team? Because I was under the impression that they weren't going to play the starters. Rule is like most of the starters are going to play. So they're treating this like it was a 4-game preseason, and this is week 3. I thought they were going to treat it like it was week 4. Start with you, Schuyler. What's one of the main things you would like to see coming out of this preseason game with the Bills, who many people are hyping to be the preseason favorite out of the AFC to get to the Super Bowl?
Situational football. I tell you what, we watched practice yesterday, and it was very uninspiring, to say the least, in terms of 2-minute offense, red zone. That was a big problem yesterday. We saw 2 snaps that got rolled back to the quarterback. I'm not going to signal out which center did it, but it was just very ugly. So,
who did it?
Oh, hey, we win. Yes,
it was 60 Pat Elflein. So
okay, I'm going to say you're in a safe space here. We're
good. So yeah, I want to see them be more efficient, situational football. And I think too, defensively, everyone's going to talk about, Baker and how they look offensively, but I'm not really worried about that. They'll get better as time goes on. To me, the thing with this team is if they can stop the run, they're going to win an extra 2 to 3 games than they did last year. That was one area they could not do, or that they didn't have much success in last year. If they can stop the run, especially wide zones, that's just going to get this team much better. Now, Buffalo's not really a running team, so who knows? But I want to see how that starting unit looks.
Feels like Josh Allen is the running back for Buffalo. It seemed like it was the one thing they were missing on their run last year. They didn't have a running back. Jay Stu, what you looking at for week 3 here, preseason Bills Panthers?
Well, I just want everybody to come out of that thing healthy.
Yes.
Yes. Just come out of that thing healthy. Offensively, offensive line, I just want to see them, come, the starters come out of that thing with, a clean game, no mental errors, not giving up any sacks, and not even any rushes, you know what I'm saying? Just kind of being solid. That's at the end of the day, every game going forward from here on out, when them starters are in there, I just want the offensive line to be solid. Because if you got a solid offensive line everything else is going to, pave its way. So offensive line for me, and then, seeing Icky out there again. I want to see another pancake block by him.
That Patriots week.
I want to see that every week out of him. So, just setting the tone out the offensive line is important, and then just staying healthy.
Well, one thing I don't want to see is Christian McCaffrey in uniform. That's one thing right there.
We don't need to see him play.
No, we don't need to see him play. Just be out there in street clothes, CMC. Yeah. You good? We got you week one. Yeah. We ain't even gonna try to risk it.
Maybe he can line up at slot or something and just take off and get a nice little route.
Yes,
I don't want all that.
Yeah. We saving him for the Browns. I almost, now that they've named him the starter, it's making me wonder how much Baker's going to play this weekend as well. He's curious.
Playing a quarter.
He's playing how much?
A quarter, potentially into the second, but not much.
Okay, so he'll run with the ones, and then I assume Darnold will come in and run with the second string, and then I guess we'll see some PJ Walker to finish off the game. I'm interested in Shi Smith. He had a eventful offseason and was drafted last year, but never really got on the field for anything. And he's one of those names that just keeps popping up. Every week we do this in the preseason, his name keeps popping up on making plays, like, in these practices or whatnot. And he's making it hard for him to get cut. They've got Moore, they got Anderson, they brought in Higgins, and Terrence Marshall, who's been a preseason darling the past 2 years and running now, although he's been hurt, if I'm not mistaken, right, Schuyler? Terrence Marshall's been hurt for a little while now, so he hasn't really played. It's opened up a door for Shi Smith to kind of show off what he can do. This team needs someone special teams wise, return wise, and they also need a fourth or fifth receiver. So I think they are going to keep probably, 5 or 6 wide receivers, and one of those is going to probably get hurt through the year or nicked up. So you need depth, and Smith seems like he's trying to be in that group. I'd be interested to see what he does, because I think he's going to get a lot of playing time in this game 3 as they try to make decisions on who to cut after this game. So
real quick, I just want to throw this in here while we're on here. I just got a text that Corral is done for the season.
Yep.
So we expected that, but don't know if it's going to be surgical. I would assume it would be.
Yeah, if it's surgical, from what I read, the average time back is like 12 months or something like that. Panther fans, if the injury sounds familiar, it's the same injury that Cam Newton had 2018 in preseason against the Patriots, matter of fact. Hurt his foot in that preseason game. Just wasn't right the whole year. Started all that from that point on. Shout out to Matt Corral. Seems like a good kid. I feel like he was getting closer to Baker, actually. Seems like they were hanging out more the past week or two in and out of practice, kind of picking up some stuff from Baker, which I loved. Matt Corral, potentially future with the Panthers. He wasn't going to really play this year anyway, and I think that was the plan, but still, you got to hate it that that happened to him. And hopefully he'll have a healthy recovery, and we'll see him next year. Bills, Panthers this weekend, week 3, and then we get a 2-week reprieve from playing, and then the season is going to start September the 11th, Sunday, 1 p.m. Panthers hosting the Cleveland Browns. That's going to be an insane atmosphere. I would imagine Baker's going to come out. He said all the right things, but he's going to come out with a little hate in his heart, probably. I mean, when a team just kind of disposes you for something else, you're going to keep that with you probably. Like, it's just natural. You're human. So I figure he's going to come out fired up. I'm hoping the team is fired up because of it for him. And for me, that'll be a gauge for what to look for in this season. The beginning of the year, like you guys said, the first 5 or 6 weeks kind of open up a path for this Panther team to make some noise. It's year 3 for Matt Rule. And everyone always said year 3 is the year that his teams make the turnaround or they make the flip. The ingredients are there. So we'll see. We'll see what they can do here. We'll be back next week. Once again, brand new co-host Jonathan Stewart with us for the 2022 season. We're gonna ball out this year, have a lot of fun. For Schuyler Callihan from Sports Illustrated, for Jonathan Stewart, I'm Desmond Johnson. You've been listening and watching the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network. Find us on all major podcast platforms and keep pounding.